Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amy and I'm currently paying off 6 figures worth of student loans. So if you've watched my debt confession video, I believe I share a little bit about how our journey originally started. Well, it actually originally started many different times, but I think I talk a little bit about that in that video as well. So I will link that video if you want to go check it out before you watch this video. But I was requested to do a video like this by somebody when I last asked for video requests for debt-free December, and I thought that this was a really great topic for this time of year. So I remember in 2016, it was like around this time, in 2016, around Christmas time, and it was kind of the first time that I was like, I am so sick of not having any money. Of paying all my student loan payments and not getting anywhere, basically. So I bought this book, and this was really the introduction that I had to the personal finance community, the debt-free community, and all of that. So after I bought this book in the end of 2016, we had kind of started our first attempt at a debt-free journey at that point. So in 2017, we basically paid off all of our consumer debt. So we paid off my car and a couple of credit cards, and then we kind of stopped. So we had kind of gotten that far, and then I was like, hold up, it's too overwhelming. My student loans are too big. I'm never going to get out of student loan debt. Like, it's just not possible for me. So I read the book again in 2020, in January of 2020 to be exact. And if you followed me for a while, you know that we restarted our most recent debt-free journey, which we're coming up on 2 years now of being on this restarted journey with my student loans. And I reread this book in January of 2020, and it kind of clicked. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, you can read things or you can watch videos like this, and if you are not ready to change, then it's not going to happen. So I read this book once, it did not click. I read it again, and it finally clicked. So we restarted our journey in January of 2020 with about $119,000 in student loans. And now we are very, very close to being debt-free. So this month I'm filming some extra videos and I'm titling it Debt-Free December. So definitely subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to be filming a lot of different videos, but today specifically, I wanted to talk a little bit about ways that we have strayed from this book from Dave Ramsey, because originally we were very hardcore in Dave Ramsey's baby steps. So we didn't really stray a lot from his teachings at first, and we really stuck to the baby steps. But over the last 2 years, obviously things have changed. We have strayed pretty far away from the original teachings of Dave Ramsey. And so I thought I would just talk a little bit today about ways that we have strayed from Dave Ramsey and how we have still been successful on our debt-free journey while doing things our own way. So number one that I can think of is that we did not use the debt snowball exclusively while paying off our debt. So when we restarted in January 2020, I did use the debt snowball at first because that's what they teach in the book, and I knew that that was a good way to pay off debt. So we started with the debt snowball, and then, you know, we had kind of worked the debt snowball for a little bit, and then I was like, I kind of want to change it up a little bit. And so we switched to the avalanche method around the time that federal student loans stopped accruing interest. So we decided to switch to the avalanche method because that made the most sense mathematically for us to make the biggest impact on our student loans while they were not accruing any interest. So we switched, we did debt snowball, then we did debt avalanche, and then if you've watched my videos recently, we've actually switched back to the debt snowball to finish our debt. So we did not stick to the debt snowball the entire time. And I honestly think that that helped us. It kind of reignited us in different parts of our journey and allowed us to do things our own way. And it worked for us. I do like the debt snowball though, so I don't think it's a bad thing if you just do that, but that was just kind of what worked for us. So the second tip that we did not follow from Dave Ramsey's baby steps is having only $1,000 emergency fund. I know that this is quite a contentious debate in the debt-free community. A lot of people do not agree with this advice. And honestly, I'm not going to spend too much time on it just because I think it's covered by so many different people why this is not a good idea. But for us, we are a family of 4. We were a family of 4, and now I'm also pregnant. So we're about to be a family of 5, and having $1,000 when we are also homeowners and we own a car and all this other stuff just didn't seem like a smart decision for us. So throughout our journey, we've had different amounts in savings. It's kind of ebbed and flowed throughout the journey. There was a point where we had a lot more in savings. Like we almost had an entirely fully funded emergency fund when COVID first hit. And then we kind of drained that down a little bit after we kind of figured out like, okay, COVID's here to stay. So we kind of had built it way up in the beginning of the pandemic, and then we kind of drained it a little bit. So it has kind of ebbed and flowed, but we have never, I don't believe, at any point in our restarted journey had less than $5,000 in savings. That was like our bare minimum. I would really stick to like $1,000 per person in your family. And then like even maybe adding another $1,000 if you're a homeowner, or another $1,000 if you own a vehicle. Like just figure out what works for you. But I would really probably not advise anybody to only have $1,000. I really just feel like that's not enough. It's a good starting point. So if you want to start at that goal, I think that's great. But I would definitely continue to build it up because it's definitely not enough, especially if you're a homeowner. I could tell you so many things that we have had happen in our house that were way more than $1,000 over the last 4 years since we've owned this house. So take that as you may, but we decided not to follow that, and I have zero regrets. I'd have been able to pay off our debt a little bit sooner if we had a little bit less in savings, but that is just what feels comfortable to us. So number 3 is we did not put down 20% on our mortgage, and we also did not do a 15-year mortgage. Now, I think his guidance is actually like putting down 10 to 20%. I can't really remember off the top of my head. He doesn't talk about it a lot in this book, but he talks a lot about it on his podcast. So I don't recall exactly what his advice is, but I know he definitely recommends a 15-year mortgage. We decided to, when we purchased our house, this was pre-debt-free journey. We bought this house in 2018. And we only put down, I believe, like 5 to 7% when we bought this house. And we did a 30-year mortgage. I do not regret that at all, though, because the mortgage rates are so low right now. And our mortgage being so low has allowed us also to put a lot more towards debt. So it's not that I wouldn't like recommend doing 20%. Obviously, if you can, that's amazing. But I'm also glad that we bought our house when we did, if that makes sense. So again, this is absolutely not like advice that I would give. This is just different ways that we have strayed away from like his teachings and how we've still been able to be successful. So having a less expensive mortgage for us has definitely allowed us to have our living expenses be so low that we're able to put more than 50% of our income to debt. So that has been a huge help with our debt payoff journey. If we were still renting, we would be paying $200, $300, $400, $500 extra a month on rent. So definitely has helped us with our journey. And that is just another way that we kind of strayed away from his teachings. So number 4, and the one that I am like the most passionate about, and if you follow me on Instagram, you've absolutely heard me talk about this before because I am very passionate about this being bad advice, is to stop your retirement contributions while you're paying off debt. So I have been contributing to my company's retirement since I started at my company in 2016. My husband has been contributing to retirement for a little bit longer than that. And it just never made sense to me why I would stop getting the match on my employer 401k just so that I could pay down debt a little bit faster. For us, it would not make that big of a difference. My husband and I both put 5% of our income towards retirement. That is the minimum that we can put and get the full match for both of our employers. So we're not contributing anything additional to that right now until we are debt free, and then we do plan to increase it. But I'm not going to leave the employer match on the table. Like I have a 7% match on 5 and my husband has a 4% match on 5. So that would be a giant chunk of income every single year that we'd be missing out on. So if your employer offers a match and you are not taking advantage of it, absolutely take advantage of it. It is money that you are missing out on. It is part of your compensation plan. You deserve that money and it will benefit you in the future. So absolutely do not miss out on the match. I can't believe that he hasn't changed his stance on this, to be honest. I get it. It does absolutely help you pay off debt faster, but to miss out on the time in the market when you're at such a young age, typically when you're paying off debt, makes no sense to me. It is one thing that I will like adamantly advise against. So definitely contribute to retirement while we're on our debt-free journey. Although I am glad that we never bumped it up, because I do see the value in having more of your income to be able to put towards debt. So that is a reason why we never bumped it up higher than that. But yes, we definitely took advantage of that match. And my husband and I have a significant amount of money in our 401ks. At least I think for our age, I feel like we are in a good spot. And so I feel really good about the fact that we're about to be debt free, and now we can increase it and just have had those years of growth prior and continue to build on top of that. So definitely, I do not recommend stopping retirement while you're paying off debt. Number 5 is rice and beans. If you've listened to Dave Ramsey or read any of his materials, you absolutely know what I'm talking about. Rice and beans, beans and rice, no restaurants unless you're working there. My husband and I both spent many years working in the restaurant industry, so it kind of makes me laugh. But we don't follow that at all. We eat out. We still have an eating out budget. We still have a personal budget. We still have fun money that we spend. We have drastically reduced our eating out budget since we've been paying off debt, but I absolutely don't subscribe to the, you can't see a restaurant unless you work there. In my opinion, that's not a good way to live your life, especially, and I will say this with caution a little bit. I am speaking from a perspective of somebody who has had a very long debt-free journey. If you have a very small amount of debt and you're able to be debt-free in a couple of months, maybe it is a good idea to not see the inside of a restaurant for you. For me, that would not be sustainable for 2+ years on this journey. So I think it also kind of depends on how long your journey is. If you have a longer journey, if you have a lot of debt, don't deprive yourself of what makes you happy for multiple years just so you can be debt-free 14 minutes earlier. It just doesn't make sense to me. You still have a life to live and you still deserve to live a good life. There's no moral connection with having debt and being bad. There's no morality of debt. Just because you're in debt doesn't mean that you're not a good person or that you deserve less than somebody who's not in debt. So we absolutely did not subscribe to the rice and beans situation. We still buy good food. We still eat out occasionally. We still, celebrate our birthdays and go out to nice restaurants on our birthdays because that's what we enjoy to do. So definitely don't feel like you have to deprive yourself. If you want to, fine, but don't let anybody make you feel bad for wanting to enjoy and live your life while you're still in debt. So number 6 is no credit cards, cut the plastic surgery, whatever you want to call it. We do still use credit cards, and I know that this is also a little bit of a contentious debate in the community with credit cards. However, we have not been in credit card debt in many years at this point. We paid all of our credit cards off back in 2017-ish timeframe, and we have not carried a balance on a credit card since then. So speaking from that perspective, we have learned how to utilize credit cards in a way that works for us and take advantage of the points while not overspending. And I think that goes hand in hand with having a budget every single month. We do sometimes go over budget, of course. Our budget's not perfect, but we don't spend way more than we can afford to pay on a credit card. Our credit card gets paid off 2 times a month. I pay it off in the middle of the month, and then I do a reconciliation. I post my budget reconciliations as well. I will link those above if you want to watch them, but I pay off my credit card 2 times a month in full. No ifs, ands, or buts. That has worked for us for many years. If you have issues with credit cards, I do not recommend this. I will just say that. I think there's nothing wrong with using cash or debit. That is just what works for us, and I like to use credit cards because I like to travel hack and use my credit card points for that. So that is just another thing we do not follow. And lastly, and also kind of most importantly in my opinion, is the fact that Dave Ramsey subscribes to this idea that credit scores don't matter. And I don't really understand where this comes from, because anybody who is living a normal life, so anybody who's not a millionaire or has a crap ton of money basically, you need a credit score for a lot of different things. It could be for car insurance or a job. I have had jobs that have actually pulled my credit before, and I have had, car insurance pull my credit. It's not even just for the fact of getting debt, because I know he's it's an I love debt score, and I understand that it is an I love debt score. That is honestly what it is. But there are ways that you can build your credit score without going into credit card debt. So we have an excellent credit score. My husband and I both have credit scores in the mid 800s, and that is because we use our credit cards, but we pay them off in full. You absolutely do not need to carry a balance on a credit card in order to build credit. We also have a mortgage, and we qualified for a way better rate because we had excellent credit when we got our mortgage. So if you ever see yourself needing to use debt in the future, and debt is not necessarily such a negative thing either, like there are ways that you can use debt as a tool, like a mortgage, for example. I mean, most people aren't going to be able to pay cash for a house. Most people. I wish I could, but I am not one of those people that can pay cash for a house. So we do need credit scores, and I would say that that is probably 90% of people. And yes, there are ways that you can get around not having a credit score. I know you can do manual underwriting, but not all banks offer that. It can be very challenging. I would just highly recommend that you look into this for yourself and decide if you feel like you need a credit score. If you pay off all your debt and you close all of your accounts, that is when your credit score goes away. So it does take some time. Like even if you left a credit card open, I believe you would still have a credit score, but it would probably be low because you're not utilizing anything. And I would just caution you against ever like hurting your credit score just because you think that you might not need it. But there's so many other things that you need a credit score for. So I could go into that. So if you guys want another video in depth on any of these topics, definitely let me know. Those are the 7 things that I wanted to talk about today. Definitely let me know in the comments down below if you follow any of these, or if you have also strayed away from Dave Ramsey's original teachings. Like I said, the reason that I wanted to film this video is because this is honestly how we got our start. And I do really appreciate Dave Ramsey for that, and I credit him for that, because without his original teachings, I don't think that I would be here. But I also think it's important to surround yourself with other voices outside of this, because it can be a little bit damaging if you're only listening to one person. And I think that you can tailor plans to make them work for you. Obviously, his plan is tailored for the masses and multiple people, but you can tailor his plan to work for you. I don't understand why there is so much discussion in this community about not tailoring things to work for you. But I advise you to even don't take my advice either. Make it work for you. But that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments down below any things that you've changed or how your journey is going. I would absolutely love to hear about it. And I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.